If you ask me what do you like the most in CSS, my answer would be Flexbox. Yes, Flexbox are so amazing, and today we will talk about CSS Flexbox. So let me give you a quick introduction to CSS Flexbox. The Flexbox is actually a CSS layout module which is used to design the structure so that it is responsive and looks good on different screen sizes. If you know about CSS floors, which is a property we use for positioning, Flexbox is an advanced and more modern approach which replaces the floors. So now we know what exactly is CSS Flexbox. Now let's see how we can use CSS Flexbox. So for you to use a CSS Flexbox, we need to have a main container, and in this case I already made this simple HTML code and also linked this CSS style.css with this HTML file. And you can see here I have this div container with an id parent-1 which will be our base container, and this container will be we will be making it a Flexbox. We will be making it a Flex container so that in this container whatever items we have, for example we have these 3 paragraphs, first, second and third, so we will be trying to change the layout of these paragraphs. So what I mean by that is that you need a basic a base container, which in our case is this div container with an id parent equals to parent-1. So this will be our base container, and we will be making this div container a flex item, and then inside this item whatever content we have, whatever items we have, we will be able to interact with that, and we will be able to change the structure and the layout of that content. So the first thing we need to do is to change this div container to a flex item, a flex container. So to do that, let's go to our style.css, and there is one basic and one property that we need to add to this parent-1, and that is display property. So if you know about display, so display is used to set the display of the container. So there are different type of displays like inline, blocks, etc. So what we need to set for this for this display is flex. So flex is a display. When we set that of a specific container, it changes that to a flex container. So now you can see that when I added this display flex, this item changed. So before adding this, you can see here I have these first, second and third vertically aligned, and as soon as I add this display flex, it changes and it becomes this horizontally and collapse into one another. What that means is that now this container, this circle, this rectangle is now a flex container, and inside this the content we have, we can edit that and we can change its layout. So the first thing I'm going to do now is trying to change the directions. So let me add one another item inside this container, and that will be our fourth. So now we have this first, second, third and fourth which are collapsed into one another. Now I'm going to try and change the direction of these. So initially by default it is horizontal. Now I want to make it vertically, just like we had before using display flex. So for that there is a property by default which is flex-direction, and flex direction helps you to change the direction of your items inside a flex container. So basically there are four properties. The first one is row, the second one is row reverse, and the third one is column, and then the fourth one is column reverse. So by default it is row, which is this. So row makes it horizontal, which is it at this moment. Let's try to make it vertical. So to do that, we need to change that to column. So you can see once we do that, it is again now vertical. So now if I want to reverse this, for example, I want to set this fourth into this first, and then the third on the second, and second on the third, which will be like fourth, third, second, first, which means to reverse this order, I have another property which is column-reverse. And that makes it reverse, as you can see it here, fourth, third, second, first. So this is for the horizontally reverse. Vertically reverse, if you want to reverse it horizontally, so you also have this option which is row dash reverse, and that makes it reverse horizontally. So that is a direction property, where we have again 4 types of properties, 4 types of values, which is the first one, and the default one is this row, which makes it horizontally, and then we have another property which is column, that makes it vertically, and then we have 2 other properties which make it reverse by adding dash reverse to this row or column. So these are the 4 directions that we can use to change the direction of our items. The next property we have is FlexWrap. This is a property which helps you to decide either to fit the content into one line or into multiple lines. So let me give you an example. So to do that, we need to have some content which can exceed from this whole line and which can add one additional line. So to do that, let me make another paragraph with some additional content. So now you can see I have this first, second, third, fourth, and then the last item is a long paragraph with some gibberish text. So what I'm going to do, initially you can see here, this is one line, and it is trying to adjust into just one line. So if I don't want that, and if I want to make this content, which is remove this white space beneath the first, second, third, and fourth, what I can do is try to fit this last item into multiple lines. So for that, we have this FlexWrap. So let me give you an example. Let me show you practically. So we have this property which is FlexWrap, and it has these 3 values, which is no wrap, which is by default, which you can see right now. Then we have this wrap property, and then we have wrap dash reverse. So if I do this wrap flex-wrap equals to wrap, so now you can see here it is now in the second line. And if I want to try to move this to the first, and move the first items, which is first, second, third, fourth, are those items which are on the first line, to the second, I can simply reverse that by using wrap dash reverse, and that will reverse the content, just like the flex direction where we had column and then column reverse. In the same way, we have this flex dash wrap where we have wrap or wrap dash reverse. So that is how we can do that. In another shortcut we have, another property we have is a shorthand. And by shorthand, what I mean is that, for example, if you do not want to have these multiple properties like flex dash direction and then flex dash wrap, and for example, you want to have column flex dash direction equals to row dash reverse and something like this, but you do not want to have flex dash direction and flex dash wrap, we have a shorthand property with which we can specify the values of these both with just one property, and that is flex dash flow, where the first value is the direction and then the second value is the flex wrap. So the value for now we have for the flex direction is row reverse, and then for the flex wrap we have is wrap reverse. So let's comment these and let's save it, and now you can see here it is exactly the same result as flex direction equals to row reverse and flex wrap equals to wrap reverse. Just to confirm, what I can do is that let me remove this to show you this actually works, and now you can see this is actually working and this works. So this is a shorthand property. If you do not want to use flex direction and flex wrap, you can just use this flex flow, which will have a short which will cover this flex direction and flex wrap both at the same time. Now we have talked about how we can change the directions. Now let's see how we can work with the positions of the items. So for that, let me remove this last item, and let's see how we can change the position of this first, second, third, and fourth. So also let me remove these other commented items and also the shorthand. So To change the position, we have a property which is justify-content, and this helps to change the position on the main axis. So if you do not know about the main axis, so the main axis is this horizontal axis. So if the flex direction is row, then the main axis will be the horizontal, and if the flex dash direction is column, then the main axis will be vertically. So this main axis depends on the flex direction. But if by default it is horizontal, because by default we have the flex direction equals to row, so that is why by default we have main axis on horizontal. So we have this justify content property which position the items on the main axis. So to do that, we need to type justify-content, and then we have to add the name, the value of the property. So we have different properties which we can use. So let me start with the first one, which is the default one, and that is flex-start, and that put all the items into the start, into the left. And then we have another property for the center to put other items into the center, and the third one is to the right, which is FlexEnd. And now if I want to do something that makes it that adds some spaces in between these items, I can also do that. So there are again some different kind of properties for that as well. So one is space between, which adds spaces in between these items, and you can see the result. The second one, if for example I want to have spaces in to the left of the first and to the right of the fourth as well, I can also do something like space around. And this is what this property do is that it adds half of the space of first and second. So the space that is in between first and second, it takes that, it divides that into two, and add that space to the left of the first and to the right of the fourth. Now if you want to add even spaces, like equal space to the left and to the right of first, and also to the second right and left. So if you want to add even space, you have another property which is space dash evenly, which will add even spaces. So these are some of the basic commands, some of the basic values which you can use. The first one is flex start, which is the default one, flex center, flex end, space evenly, space between, space around. So these are some of the properties, but of course these are not limited to these. There are also some more properties, but we will not talk about those. But one thing to remember is that this depends on the main axis. So for example, this works now, but if I do something like this, now it does not work. Let me show you. So if I do it center, you can see it is not working, and the reason for that is, now when I do flex direction column, that means that the main axis, which is an axis in the flex boxes, now the main axis is vertically, not horizontally. So this will not work anymore because it depends on the main axis. It does not always work for the horizontal wise. So once you change the main axis to vertically, then this property will not work, and this will not set into the center. So that is justify content. So to fix that, you have the property which is align items. So let's also first remove this, and let me show you how we can use align items. So I showed you how we can use the main axis horizontally and how you can change the items on the main axis. So what align items does is that it changes the properties, it changes the position on the cross axis. So in Flexboxes we have the main axis and the cross axis. By default, the main axis is horizontal wise and the cross axis is vertical wise. So now we have the default properties. We did not change the flex direction, and by that it means that the main axis is horizontal wise and the cross axis is vertical wise. So now I'm going to work with the cross axis. So to work with the cross axis, you need to use this property align items. So align items work with the cross axis. So align items has different values. So the first one is flex start, which is by default the default one, and then we have FlexEnd, which is the other one which put all the content to the bottom of the container, but in this case it does not work, and the reason for that is it does not have that much of height. So let me give it some height and then it will work. So now I give it 200 pixel height and you can see here it works now. So if I remove this, it will go back to the start, which is the default property, for the align items, which is flex-start. Now let me remove the comment. And another property is center. So if you want to center it, you can do something like this, center, and that will center the content. There is another value which is stretch. So that actually stretch all the items. But this will not work here, and you can, it actually work, but you cannot see the effects here. And let me show you why exactly it does not work. So let me open the dev tools and mount it to the bottom. And now you can see here, this actually covers the whole area. So what does that mean is that once you do align-item equals to stretch, then it covers the whole area. So if you have something like, for example, a div container which have a background, so for example, I have this paragraph which has the background, and the background is salmon. So now you can see it covers this whole area, and the rest of the area is the padding. That is why it does not cover that. So stretch means that to stretch the items. So if I remove this, it will and do flex start, it will again set back to this start. So another property we can use is baseline. Now baseline, what baseline does is that in this property, in this value, items are aligned such that their baselines are aligned. So you cannot see the effect here, but if you have some other items inside this container, and in that items in that containers, for example, if you have this main container and then inside that you have other div containers, and then in those div container you have other text, so all of those texts will be aligned with each other horizontally. So that is what BaseKind does for you. So I'm pretty sure the BaseKind property is confusing for you. So let me demonstrate how it exactly works and what I mean by vertically or horizontally aligning the items. So to show you that, I have to remove this. So let me comment that and add some div containers here. And inside that, let's go with 1, 2, 3, and add some classes to this. First, second, and third. So let me add some design now to this so that it has a background and it affects and it shows the effects. And I have to remove this one. So now you can see here, let me also give some padding to this as well. So now this first div container, which has this one, that is this container, and then I have the second one, and then I have the third one. So what the BaseKind does is that it horizontally align all the content of this of these containers, of these div containers. So that is what the BaseKind does. I am sure you still have the confusion, because if I change this to flex start, you can see the result is still the same as of the BaseKind. So let me clear this confusion of yours now. So let me change this to flex start and add some margin to any one of this div container, and let's make it pixel to 20 pixel. So now you can see one is a little bit down as compared to the 2 and 3 horizontally, and what I want now is to position this on one single line horizontally. So for that we have the BaseKind. Now if I change this to the BaseKind, you will see the difference. So if I do that now, you can see here now it is horizontally aligned. So that is the job of BaseKind. What it does is that it horizontally align all the items on one single line. Now the next property we are going to use and see is align-item, which defines how each line is aligned within the Flexbox or the grid container. And to use this property, there are two conditions. The first one is that within the flex container we need to have multiple lines, and the second property is second condition is that we need to have a property FlexWrap equals to wrap. So to achieve that, let's add some other gibberish tags and make it multiple lines. And now we have some gibberish tags. Now let's make it multiple lines. So to do that, again we have to use FlexWrap and make it wrap. So now we have the multiple lines. Now we can use the againItems property. So let's also remove this one. And now if I do againContent and stretch, so what does the stretch do is that it takes the lines. So for example, in this case we have the two lines, so it divides the total height by the total number of lines. So it gives each line, in this case it gives the first line 50% of the height of the total container, and the second line also take the 50% of the height. So if you have like three lines, then it will be also, the height will be also divided equally. So that is the stretch. That is what stretch does. Now we have the flex start property. So if I change this to flex start, it put all the content, all the lines on the top. So now you can see we have a space left on the bottom. And if you want to put all the lines on the bottom, you have flex end, which put all the content on the bottom. And similarly, you have the center. So if you want to center the content, you can do that too. Now the item is centered, the content is centered. You can also use space between, which adds space in between the two lines. And if you want to have some spacing in between on the top of the first line and on the bottom of the second line, you can also do that by using space around, so that you can see now it has the space, and it also has the space, but since it has like a lot of content which is not adjusting, that is why it also took the space, but basically it already gave some space to it. So that is again content. So if you want to adjust the space, adjust the spacing, or adjust the positions of the lines, so for that you can use again content. Now we have talked about how we can adjust the directions and how we can adjust the positions. Now let's see how we can work on the specific child items. So let me first remove some of the content and make it a little bit cleaner. So let me also remove the gibberish text that we just recently added. And now you can see it is in the center. And let me also remove this line and make it baseline. So now it is baseline as we did before. Now, for example, I want to move the first nested item to the center and have the second and the third item on that same position. I can do that as well. So for that, I have the property which is align.self. What the align self does is that it work on that specific nested item, that specific nested child, and change the position of that child. For example, as I just said, if I want to change the position of the first item specifically, I can do align-item and make it center, and align-self actually, and it will center the content of that specific child. And you can see the other two are not changed. They are still on the top. Just the first item is moved to the center. And if I want to move it to the bottom, I can also do that. And you can see here I have the first item placed on the bottom. So that is how you can change the specific item and make the other items untouched. And this actually works on the cross axis. So you can see here now we have not changed the flex directions, which means the vertical axis is the cross axis at the point. I have already said that before that we have two axes. One is the main axis, the second one is the cross axis. By default, the horizontal line, the x-axis, is the main axis, and the y-axis, which is the vertical axis, is the cross axis. So now we have not changed the flex direction. That means the vertical direction, vertical axis, y-axis is the cross axis. So that means the align self works on the cross axis. So if I change the position, if I change the direction by using flex direction and make it column, now you can see it, the cross axis has changed on the x-axis. So now it is on the bottom. And if I want to, for example, change the second item and push it to the center, I can do that too by simply using align self and making it center. Now you can see here I have 1 on the bottom, on the most left, 2 in the center, and 3 on the most left. So that is how you can specify, how you can position specific elements, specific nested items. The next property I am going to discuss is the order property. So each nested item has this specific order. For example, the first item, which is this one has this order 0, the second has 1, and the third has 2. So each nested element has a specific order. So for example, if I want that this first item goes to the third place, to here, and this second one goes to first, and third one goes to the second. So what I can do is that I can change its order, and for that I can do is make this first orders equals to 3. So now what happens is that the order of the second class is 1, and the order of the third class is 2. And what we just did is we just set the order of the first class to 3. So which means that the least order we have is for second, which is 1, and then we have third, and then we have now first. Now for example, if I want to move third in place of second, I can change its order. So since we do not have anything on 0, so let me make its order 0. It will not work, and the reason of that is we have to change this order as well. So order, and the first one is 3, so let's make it 2, and now this works. So we have this 3, and then 2, and then 1. Now if you want to adjust the space, adjust the size, adjust the width according to the screen height automatically, you can also do that. And for that we have a property that is known as FlexGo, and this is a property that we have to use for the nested item. So let's see how we can use that. But before that, let's remove some additional properties. So let me also remove the direction, and Also, let's remove the order. Now they are in one line, and also let's remove the margin top so they are on one specific line, and also remove the heights, or maybe just make it equal. Now one last thing I have to do is that let me change the color so that we can see that the height is changed. So let's make this one this color, and let's make this one this color, and this one this color. And also let's remove the padding. Now you can see they are shrink together into one another, they are collapsed into one another. So now what we are going to do is that we need to we want to change the height, change the width of these nested item as we adjust the screen. So for that, as I just said, we have the property which is FlexGo, and this is a property that we can use to adjust the width. By default it is 0. So for example, if I want to increase this one 5 times, so that you can see here now it takes almost all the size. So by default it is 0, and if I change this to 1, then that means that the element will grow by a factor of 1. So it will actually take the whole size, whole remaining content, and the space, and that the reason for that is the other two, second and third, is 0. So we also have to adjust that as well. So let's make it 1, and let's make this last one 2. Now you can see here this height, this width is larger, is more as compared to the first and second, and the reason for that is we have FlexGo equals to 2, and this is relative to the first and second one. Now if I try to change the size of this of the width, if I try to change the width, you can see here it is adjusting itself automatically. So it is you can see here it is a good practice that we use this, and by using this we can automatically remove most of the code, and we don't need to worry about each screen size, and it will adjust itself automatically. So that is how you can use the flex item FlexGo. Now we have talked about how to increase the size as the size of the whole page increase. Now let's see how we can shrink it. So there is a property known as FlexLink, which defines how much a Flexbox item can be shrink if there is not enough space. So to do that, let's first add some content here. So for example, this is first, and also add it here as well. So this will be, this is second, and then we will have, this is third paragraph. Now we have these 3 paragraphs. Now there will be certain scenarios. For example, in smaller size, there will be a lot of content which needs to be adjusted in some specific way. So there we can use this FlexLink, which have to decide what to do when there is not enough space. So by default it is 1. So this is the default height, the default width, and 1 means that if there is not enough space available in the container main axis, the element will shrink by a factor of 1 and will wrap its component. We have another value which is flex-shrink equals to 0, and the 0 means that this element will not shrink at all. and if it will retain the width its need and will not wrap its content. And then we have another value which is 2, and 2 means that this value is relative to the other two, the other elements and the other child's variable, so its behavior depends on the value of the siblings. So in this example, the first item, the first class, will take 100% of the width, and the space it needs is taken from its other two siblings and is divided by 4. So 3/4 are taken from the second one and 1/4 is taken from the third one. So now if I minimize it, if I change its size, let's also remove the minimum width and add some more content here. Now you can see here the first one is trying to adjust, and if I try to add some content here, now you can see here it's not trying to adjust its content, it just pushed the rest of the items. And the third one, if I add something here, and let me remove the dev tools. So you can see here the first one is trying to adjust, the second one is remaining static, the second one is acting like a boss. So the second one don't want to adjust itself based on the content, based on the size. It just want to have enough width that it can have all the content in one single line. And the third one is relative to the first and the second one. Now there is one more property that we can use, and to show that, I actually have to comment the other properties that are FlexGo and FlexShrink. And the property that I'm going to discuss with you now is flex-basis. And this is a property that defines the initial size of the Flexbox item. So initially you can see here it actually divided the width into 3 equal parts. And there is this item, there is this value that is known as FlexShrink, this property. And for example, if I want to make the initial size of the first item half of the current value, what I can do is that I can set it to 50%, and you can see it here now. It has this half the property, and the other 50% which was deducted from the first property, from the first item, is added to the second and the third one equally. So that is a property we can use to give the initial size to the Flexbox. So for example, if I now want the 50% which was deducted from the first property was equally divided into the second and third, but what I want is that that 50% goes to just the second property, not to the third one. So let's add that here. So flex-basis, and let's make it 150%. And now you can see here the first one is 50%, second one is 150%, and the third one is still the same 100%. So that is how you can give the initial sizes as well. So now we have talked about the flex-basis, the FlexShrink, and also the FlexGo. Let me remove this. So now it has the basis, and now it has the basis, the shrink, and grow. So now if you do not want to use all the 3 properties, there is also a shorthand for this that you can use, and that shorthand is flex, just flex, and then you can add your properties. So the shorthand has 3 values. The first one is FlexGo, the second one is FlexShrink, and the third one is flex-basis. So if you want to use it, so in this case we have grow and shrink 1, and then the base quality basis is 50%, so that you can now comment this, and it is still the same. So just to confirm you, this is a value that you can so this is flex is a shorthand property that you can use to avoid writing this FlexGo, FlexLink, and FlexSpaces. So this is how you can use a shorthand property. So this was about CSS Flexboxes. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have understand something new, if you learn how CSS Flexboxes work, please hit the like button, and please make sure you subscribe the channel. I'm pretty sure you have not yet subscribed because this is the first video on this channel. So please do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, any queries, please post that in the comment section.